Welcome, everyone. This is the Heroes Podcast. I'm so happy to be back. I've got Barbara Anne Gardenhire-Mills. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm really, really excited to be here in what is morning in my time.
Well, it's in the afternoon in Europe, but that's the beauty of connecting through Zoom and having these wonderful, wonderful conversations. Before you get into your story, I just wanted to intro you so everyone knows who we are meeting here today. Barbara is a coach and business economic, and a community developer expert who assisted thousands during her career. She founded purpose-filled solutions and evolutions, coaching and consulting firm that helps clients feel seen, heard, and valued to become their vision of extraordinary. I love that it's so relevant to self-worth. So excited. So Forbes Coaches Council member, her credentials include MS in Executive Leadership, ICF Professional Certified Coach, Certified Positive Intelligence Coach, and a second degree black belt in traditional Okinawan karate. Be careful with her. So welcome and tell us, did you want to take us back to the beginning? How was it for you to be in your skin in the early days of your life? Has there been challenges?
It has, and the good news is that it has made me who I am. But I may not look it, but I was born in 1968 in the United States, in New Jersey, in a very small rural town in southern New Jersey. At a time my parents got married, it was actually still illegal in some states in the United States for mixed race couples to get married, and her family disowned her. Um, and so I was born in 1968 on the anniversary of President John F. Kennedy's assassination, 50th year anniversary. So that is
Oh,
something that always comes up. And but my mom would go on to have five more children. Four survived, and my dad passed away when I was seven, and I was the oldest. So I had a 28-year-old widowed mom with four children under the age of seven, living in an apartment complex that now in the United States they would call affordable housing, but that wasn't a thing back then. And I watched her grow and evolve as an individual, and basically, in many ways, was kind of like her spouse. I took care of my siblings because I was seven, my sister was five, my brother was two, and my youngest sister was 7 weeks old. My dad died 10 days before Christmas. And that would put me on a very interesting path of service, being raised in a very fundamentalist church, which I would later reject, having experienced things as a child and later as a teenager that I wouldn't wish on anybody else from a traumatic experience, but that would also shape my destiny. And I always knew I wanted to do something to help people. I knew that that was what I was meant to do, even though there was a performer artist side to me.
let me ask you this because I think that's what we are most interested in. You said things that you don't wish for anyone else to experience from a traumatic point of view. I mean, I understand you must have had to grow up in no time and
Yes.
probably taking care of others, which has led to serving others. But did you want to tell us like how you felt or what was
Yeah.
going on in those hard times?
Yeah, absolutely. Now you see a lot more interracial couples. At that time, there really wasn't that many. And so, even though my dad's family was very much integrated with the last name Gardenhire, there's lots of Gardenhires of all different, um, I guess, shades and colors, um, Caucasian, you name it. Um, but some of the other experiences that I had, it was very strict upbringing from my dad's side of the family, um, punishments that wouldn't be acceptable today, um, other behaviors that were tolerated. I was molested by and who were also molested. And it was just, even when I would talk to a therapist as an adult, they would say, well, if it's under a certain age, it doesn't count.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
it really
And
counts.
yeah, it does count. And I've heard that from more than one therapist. Well, if it's under a certain age, it's only experimentation, not when it's not wanted. Um, and that would ultimately affect other members of the family to the point that actually my youngest sister, who was also molested, would eventually end up becoming a drug addict and dying. Um, I was never, it was unwanted touching, but what would ultimately happen is at the age of 19, after being raised in this otherwise very stringent religion, I would lose my virginity to rape. And then turned to paint purpose and did speaking engagements at my old high school and college and kind of really found my way of healing within my circle of friends. Because a lot of people don't realize how many women and men actually do experience that in their lives. The statistics vary depending on who you ask, but it's rather staggering. And then only at 23, to be dating someone who knew my backstory, knew I did speaking engagements on this topic, who then would drug me when I was not drinking and proceed to gang rape
Oh,
me with some friends. So yeah, it's interesting. I found one of the things that I learned was that I was a bit of an exotic novelty, for lack of better words. Because I wasn't white, I wasn't black, I was different, I wasn't Latina, which is what most people think I was. And so people never really saw me. They
that's good.
saw the appearance of me, they saw the uniqueness of me, and they wanted to, have it dominate, control it, or try it out of curiosity. And so, um, so much of my life, I just wanted people to not have those experiences. I kind of chalked it up to, if anybody can learn from my story, no matter how hard it once was to tell, it's not even hard anymore. Because I don't even acknowledge that those things happened to me. I acknowledge that those things happened to my body. Um, you could attack my body, but I wasn't going to let anyone take my spirit. And so, so many of the things that I've done professionally in terms of groups that I've worked with, communities that I've worked with, roles that I've held, it's always been about helping others live into their possibilities, regardless of whatever they may have experienced, because I could have gone a very different road. I have family members that really struggled and made really, really bad choices because of things they had happen to them, and others that didn't. And I would rather do all that I can, that even if I'm able to help one person, unfortunately, God and the universe have blessed me with the ability to help far more than that. I've always looked at it as if even one person can be helped, then it's worth what I went through. And if it can stop somebody else from being hurt, it's also worth what I went through.
What a powerful approach. And I certainly agree because, as we have seen, one person can change the world, and there has been a whole lot of examples, Gandhi or any any famous spiritual leader who had been the leverage point for change to occur. I just wanted to put this out there in this video that what I found as doing therapy and life transformations, I believe that it's not that it does not count. The earlier trauma has happened, it counts 100 times more intense later in life. So I hope there are not too many people out there who don't know or don't understand this. And I think the faster it is released and solved as best as possible, then it does give more freedom to someone and really go for a life what they have envisioned. So, what would you say, Barbara? What was and you've already started sharing, like, how did you came through this? Like, what worked? And was there therapy? Did you seek support? Tell us, how long did it take for you to say, I'm healed and I'm now at this space of emotional freedom and I can create a life.
Um, for me, therapy didn't do a lot. Um, it really wasn't until I had my son. And once I had my son in 2002, um, things that had not been resolved kind of bubbled up.
Yes.
And I developed postpartum. I was really struggling with these unresolved issues. And the hospital where I had him was just starting a new um, postpartum group for moms. They'd never done it before. It's fully entrenched now, but 23 years ago it wasn't. And I went ahead and I got involved and I met other women and found a lot of commonalities among us. That things that we had not resolved going into having children started to come up when now we had our own children. And that put me on a journey of doing a lot of work um, on that with a focus on postpartum, not on what I couldn't control, but what I could. And then, interestingly, only a couple of years later, um, a lot of people don't realize in the United States, 73% of workplace injuries are actually employee on employee violence. And I was a manager who posted to get away from a bully. There was no anti-workplace bullying laws in the early 2000s. I was being bullied by someone, posted, took a lateral move to get away from this person, ended up reporting to someone who is one of my heroes and now a member of my team, Purposefilled. And I was physically assaulted on the job by this person in a room full of other leaders at an offsite in one of the safest places I should ever have been in my career. I mean, I was a volunteer firefighter. I worked in communities where the police wouldn't go, in parts of New Jersey and in Pennsylvania that were not considered unsafe. I spent a lot of time, still to this day, work in a community that has drastically changed, but it was one point labeled the most dangerous city in America. And it's one that's very dear to my heart, Camden, New Jersey. And yet, here I was being assaulted in a suburban conference room in front of witnesses and by someone who had a history of bad behavior. And the company tried to side with him. And what was so different from the other things that had happened to me, um, they were more internal. This manifested in an external permanent injury. So it was a constant reminder that made it harder to put behind because
Wow.
everything that I did, every pain med I took, whatever, was a constant reminder of this incident. It was really hard to put it behind. And I discovered Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth and realized, and this is where my real work began. And I just kind of rewrote my life. I was like, okay, you're a coach, you're a trainer, you're doing all these things. To what point and purpose? And that was probably, other than my dad passing, some of those other experiences, that was probably the singular most pivotal moment professionally. Because I was like, I'm done with corporate. I'm done with all of this. I witnessed, a company circle its wagons. A lot of companies make these mistakes. Instead of just saying, we're sorry this happened to you, instead of even letting the person who did it apologize, they circled their wagons to protect themselves. And in the United States, it's interesting, especially in the state of New Jersey in the United States, you can't sue a company. You have to go to binding arbitration, and it's paid for by the company. So there's no real incentive for the binding arbitrator to rule in your favor because then they won't get future work. And when all was said and done, my dear hero, Lisa Hillerin, who works with me, is an amazing teacher and trainer in her own right. We've gone back and forth over the last 20 years. Um, she stood by me, and they went after her too. And we survived it. Company lost. Then they tried to appeal their own binding arbitration, which what part of binding is not communicated there? And the arbitrator wrote a scathing response to the fact that they tried to appeal their binding arbitration. And I exited corporate and went back into the nonprofit world as they were shutting down all New Jersey operations and redistributing all that work to New York and to India. Um, and I won't go any further than that because I think there was other stuff that contributed to that overall corporate decision that was directly related to things that happened to me and others in that location. But when I went back into corporate or into nonprofit work, which was adjacent to the government, I never looked back. And the rest of my career has been working either in nonprofit roles that help small businesses or homeowners or communities, either on the nonprofits getting government funds and private funds, or actually in the federal government. I worked for the US federal government, the US Small Business Administration, directly with small businesses, and then the US Department of Housing and Urban Development, I was assigned to as part of a special project under the Obama White House administration, where I got to work across 15 federal agencies, helping coordinate resources in the very community, Camden, that was once labeled the most dangerous city in America, to help simultaneously invest in everything from housing to education to changing the brand from law enforcement to public safety and making it about protecting the residents, not criminalizing them, and so many other unique and amazing things that have helped that community consistently for the past 15 years have lower crime rates and higher education rates and other economic investments that came even without incentives because people saw the opportunity. Like Campbell's Soup International Headquarters is stayed in Camden. Subaru of America is in Camden. Other entities came there because they saw the opportunity that existed because of all of this coordinated work. And then when I did exit that project a year and a half into the first Trump administration, we'll leave that there. I went back into nonprofit and started my own company, which the boss who stood by me when I was a traveler, actually, I can say it, I don't have an NDA. When the boss who stood by me at the insurance company that I worked with, anybody can look it up on LinkedIn anyway.
Hmm.
20 years earlier, we had talked about forming what is now Purpose-Filled Solutions and Evolutions, which will turn 4 in June. And so the
Hmm.
nonprofit that hired me, I used to oversee them, and I get to work with small businesses that are seeking loans for as small as $1,000 all the way up to 500,000 in some instances. And then in addition to that, I have a company with a team. There's 7 of us. All of us pull together to pool our expertise and resources to do different things. And we're in different parts of the United States and one person in the Philippines. And it's truly a dream come true to help people that have experienced. There's so many people have a story. Everybody has a story, and so many people can relate to elements of mine. Um,
Wow, how inspiring. Um, and I couldn't believe that that conflict of interest, that level of conflict of interest, and they are not even able to address, you know, workplace harassment and all types of things. Like I wouldn't believe it that there is a place in the US where this is just this gray dark hole and people will not be taken care of. Uh,
yeah.
I can also relate to I have been an okay and well taken care of firefighter volunteer in Australia. But it's interesting how what you shared is that children seem to be a catalyst in transforming lives, and that's certainly true in my case. When I saw my patterns of not believing in myself, not trusting myself, and not taking a leadership position, and my son, 8 year old, was clearly reflecting back my patterns. What would you speak to that topic? How children are helping us, how children are triggering us. Uh, tell us, teach us, please.
I think one of the things about children is they're very, even though kids do little kid things like white lies and things, children are honest. Children are loving, they're sponges, they're open. They're actually my favorite group to work with in karate when I just love it because they, it's the distrust and the lies and all of the negative they learn. And so focusing on the positives, the things that will help them navigate a world like ours, is important, but listening to them, I learned very early on, my son was so funny and so brilliant, and some of the most interesting things and observations would come out of him. And my goal at any cost to this day was never call him names, only call out the behavior. Listen with intent to understand instead of respond as much as possible, even when you're upset. And pay attention and always make sure that you keep him talking. Because if you ever shut him down, he may stop talking and then you stop learning. And I'm so glad I did, because while I allowed him to make his own mistakes, my husband as well allowed him to make his own mistakes within parameters of safety, um, he made them in parameters of safety. You know, we always had to think,
Well,
if you did something wrong, tell us now, tell the truth. Because if we find out later that you lied about it, the consequences will be worse. Um, and to this day, people still comment. My son is 23. He owns his own company. I mean, he's neurodiverse. Um, he had a really hard time being bullied himself in grade school, and what he's been able to do with his life. And his girlfriend, my bonus daughter, they've been together 7 years, since 14 and 16. Um, and and her mom has since passed, and so she's like a daughter to me. She's a daughter to me. Her mom even said that. I was her other mom. And so watching these two young people at 23 and 21 navigate the world the way that they are, um, has reassured me that there were a lot of things I did that were right, that I also did as a scout mom, as a sensei for little ones that come into the dojo, um, that help put them on a trajectory that could have been very different, had they not had those exposures and opportunities.
I wanted to ask you, what, so who would you say your ideal client is if they are listening to us? Like how do you serve them? How would they know that they need to get in touch with you, follow you, and learn more of what you do?
All right. Most of what I do is admittedly with leaders and emerging leaders in various levels, and business owners, and some individuals who maybe have been in leadership and transition. Occasionally I'll work with individuals who just want life coaching, but it really is more my niche is working with other leaders. Um, they're usually people who the fear of change is still more powerful than the fear of remaining the same. But they're not happy. They don't feel fulfilled. They are just kind of going through life, kind of surviving instead of living. And they finally get the courage up to explore what's possible, and and how they can do that. And I have a bunch of initials behind my name, but I use a combination of tools to meet them where they are, figure out if they're ready. We don't work with everybody, because not sometimes people aren't just quite ready yet to take that step. But when they are, we help them navigate it. With coaching, we kind of assume that the person does actually have the answers. They just haven't been able to quite navigate them in their brain. And when I was in grad school, I actually came up with the term solutions navigator, because I don't know all the answers. I never have, whether it's as a community economic and business development person or as a coach, instructor, trainer, or both. If I know all the answers, I wouldn't need a team, like, ever, right? I've got amazing people that I work with in all my roles that know more than I do in certain things. And so um, they also participate in the process with their levels of expertise. Um, but it's all about, we customize everything that we do to the individual, because every person is individually unique and extraordinary. And they're good for every company. Every team is also unique and extraordinary. And since we're all about helping people be, capital BE, come their vision of extraordinary, it starts with meeting them where they are, figuring out where they want to go, and then helping them navigate to get there. Um, One of my favorite lines, and somebody called me out, said, "Why didn't you put your name on it?" All transformational change starts the same, with a choice.
Mm.
So when we meet
I
people who are
love.
ready, yeah, good.
I, I I loved how you have made a distinction, and this is a big one, I believe, about people who know it's time or they should change, and the ones who are poised and ready and would do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Because the work with one and with the other could be well a very different path. And obviously we want to help. You love to help the ones who are ready to take that jump and never look back. So how could one engage with you? Like, what is your website? Is there anything specific that you could give away here to our audience? Maybe a free gift?
Absolutely. So our website is pretty easy. It's just www.purposefilled, S, the letter S, and E. So it's like purpose-filled sand with an E on the end.com. And we offer a free consult to anybody who wants a 50-minute evaluation and a free assessment that they can link to from every page of our website. We use the positive intelligence. I mentioned earlier, I'm a positive intelligence certified coach. I believe it's one of the least biased, most powerful assessments available because it evaluates how you respond to situations, not compares you to other people. And the only way we ever see that assessment is if you forward it to us as part of taking advantage of our free um, consultation. We offer a positive intelligence specific one and then an overall general coaching one because we do positive intelligence for companies and teams as well as for individual leaders. But everything we do is infused with positive intelligence, which was founded on the book written by Shirzad Shamin, oh gosh, over a decade ago. And it turned into a coaching program, which turned into its own movement, actually. So there are people around the world. If you need that in another language, you can still reach out to us and I can connect you with other positive intelligence coaches throughout the world who can speak in whatever language you feel most comfortable being coached in.
Wow. Thanks very much. So people will be able to follow you and see what you do.
Yeah.
And what have I not asked you, Barbara, that you would have really wanted to share today?
Um, Actually, we never got around to talking about the podcast, which you, the doctor of self-worth, who knows self-worth, is actually going to be on. I have a show called What the Why. It used to be called What the Why with Barbara Ann, and it ran for 3 seasons online on a rvntelevision.com and Roku. It's now, the older episodes are on Netstream, but we're going to be posting them to our own channels and continuing it as just What the Why. You don't need my name. What the Why is fine. And so What the Why season 4 is now pivoting into a podcast. And my fabulous host, the Doctor of Self-Worth, Andre Hoffman, is going to be one of our guests in the coming months. So
Oh,
you'll also be able to find that information on our website. You can actually go to our website and there's a portal where you can pull up our first 3 seasons episodes. Um, Especially seasons 1 and 2. I mean, I love all my guests. I'm sure you find every interview you ever do super powerful. And I've been able to interview amazing people, absolutely amazing people from actually increasingly all over the world about why they do what they do and then how they figured out that that's what their purpose is, which is totally what my company's about. It's something that we just do because we love having these conversations. How else would I get to meet such amazing, wonderful thought leaders like you?
yes, I think it's probably you have the best job. I mean, getting paid, even if not directly, for doing what you love. If you're listening to us now, it is possible for you. Perhaps you have not yet found how that's going to eventuate or unfold, but obviously taking steps on the journey with Barbara, with my community, and with maybe other thought leaders. Choose mentors, follow contents, and see the magic happen, because you you deserve it. What would have been the last words from you, Barbara, before we finish? If you could give away a few last gold nuggets.
One of my favorite sayings from former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was, never let anyone make you feel inferior without your consent. Trauma is something that happens to us. Excuse me, let me reframe that. Trauma is not something that actually happens to us. It's how we respond to an event. And so, especially for those in the long COVID community, at the interest of time, we're not going to get into my long COVID advocacy. My last pivot was actually 5 years ago when I contracted COVID and became one of the millions of people around the world that now live with long COVID. And one of the things I learned was from those earlier lessons, what happens to your body doesn't necessarily have to take your soul. And a huge part of that, as Eckhart Tolle would say, is do everything with enjoyment, enthusiasm, or acceptance. Otherwise, you're making yourself and everyone else around you miserable. I'm paraphrasing, but that's something I actually have on the wall in my office. And then, you know what? You're going to make mistakes. My privilege to know my friend Michelle Molitor wrote the book on being flawsome, which is flawed and awesome.
Nice.
But my favorite quote that hangs in our headquarters dojo for the International Okinawan Kinshikai Goju-Ruko Jiu-Jitsu Association. Shout out to Hanshi Luis Morales, and who we know as Hokuma Sensei, but the rest of the world knows as Dr. Tetsuhiro Hokuma in Okinawa, and my own sensei. We have a phrase, a quote from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was the 15th president of India and an arrow scientist, I think they call him. And he helped start their moon or their space program. And it's there is no such as, I'm going to paraphrase, but there's no such thing as fail. Fail is an acronym for first attempt in learning. And there is no end, because end means effort never dies. And no means next opportunity. And so if you look at everything through that lens and you choose to respond instead of react to things that happen, you really can have endless possibilities in life.
That is powerful. And thanks so much for your time, Barbara. And I'm looking forward to keep connecting with you and keep collaborating. See you soon.
Thank you.